43% of American retirees say they would rather die than run out of money in retirement. Not metaphorically, literally. That's a direct quote from a 2026 survey, and the median person retiring right now, not the bottom 10%, the median has $185,000 saved, according to the most recent Federal Reserve survey of consumer finances. The number they think they need to retire comfortably? $1.46 million per Northwestern Mutual's 2026 Planning and Progress Study. That is not a gap. That is a structural failure hidden behind a veneer of normalcy. But here's what makes this video different from every retirement doom piece you've seen. The people I'm going to describe today are not broke. Some of them are saving diligently. Some of them are on track according to the calculator on their brokerage's website. They have a number in their head, they're hitting it, and they are still going to run out of money. Not because they saved too little, because of 4 specific errors that have almost nothing to do with how much goes in, and everything to do with how the money comes out, when it comes out, and what it has to survive on the way out. I've spent the last several months reading the research, the EBRI survey, the HealthView actuarial data, the Morningstar withdrawal rate analysis, the Allianz annual retirement study. I have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars personally invested. I run my own business, and I've been surrounded by accountants and fiscal lawyers for over a decade. And the consistent pattern I see is this: retirement plans that look fine on paper, built on assumptions that quietly guarantee failure in practice. Here are the 4 signs that your plan has that problem. Think of retirement savings like a gas tank. Everyone obsesses over the size of the tank. Fill it up. Make it as big as possible. That obsession is understandable, and filling the tank matters. But the moment you pull out of the driveway on retirement day, the tank does not automatically protect you. The burn rate you hit in the first few miles, the unexpected tolls on a road the GPS didn't show, the detour that adds 200 miles to the trip, those are what determine whether you actually make it. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you exactly where 4 different versions of that scenario play out in real numbers. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you something about market timing that will make you question every retirement projection you have ever run. But first, here is why the backup plan most people have built, I'll work a few more years if I need to, is probably already broken. There is a story that plays out in the data constantly. A man in his mid-50s, project manager at a mid-sized manufacturing company, 15 years at the same firm. He's making around $90,000 per year, has $240,000 in his 401k, and he knows it is not where it should be. So his plan is to work until 67, put in the maximum contribution every year, let compounding do its work, and he'll hit $750,000, maybe more. He has done the math. He feels behind, but recoverable. That plan is built on a premise that works for a shrinking subset of people, and the data is now precise about how small that subset is. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, whose 2026 Retirement Confidence Survey just published 46% of Americans exit the workforce earlier than they plan to. The Society of Actuaries puts that figure at 59%. Transamerica, in a separate study of over 3,600 retirees, found 58% retired earlier than planned. The median actual retirement age in America is 62. The median expected retirement age among workers is 65. That 3-year gap is not a rounding error. It is a structural reality that has persisted for over 2 decades of surveys without narrowing. The reasons? According to the 2026 EBRI data, 76% of early retirements stem from events entirely outside the individual's control. 41% cited a health problem or disability, up from 31% just 1 year earlier. 35% cited corporate changes, downsizing, business closures, reorganizations. Our project manager gets acquired by a larger competitor. His role is eliminated in the transition. He is 57. He is out. His 6-month severance looks generous until he spends 14 months looking for a comparable position and ends up at 60, taking a role that pays $70,000 with no employer match. He did not make a bad decision. The market for his skills changed around him. This happens constantly. Here's why this sign is particularly dangerous. The contributions he loses are not random contributions. They are the contributions closest to the finish line. The years from 55 to 65 are peak earning and peak saving years. They are the years when the contributions have the least time to get wiped out by a downturn and the most time to compound before withdrawal. Lose those years and you are not just short on contributions. You are short on the most efficient contributions you were ever going to make. The average retirement period has grown from roughly 13 years for men in 1970 to nearly 19 years today. A forced exit at 57 instead of 65 means funding 27 years of retirement instead of 19, with a smaller portfolio than planned, starting earlier than expected. That is a completely different financial problem wearing the same plan's clothing. Here is the number that should concern anyone building the work longer to catch up strategy. According to the 2026 EBRI survey, 75% of workers say they plan to work for pay in retirement to supplement income. Only 29% of retirees report actually doing so. The health gives out. The job market does not want 63-year-olds the same way it wants 40-year-olds. The plan collapses quietly before anyone notices. If your retirement plan requires you to work until a specific age, and especially if it requires part-time income after retirement as a baseline assumption, you need to stress test that assumption the same way an engineer tests a bridge. Not, will this hold under normal conditions, but what happens when two things fail at the same time? Because the data says two things failing at once is not an outlier. It is the pattern. This is the first sign. Stay with me, because this next part is where I want you to pay close attention. There is a finance researcher named Wade Pfau who has done some of the most consequential work on retirement math. And one of his findings is this: approximately 77% of a portfolio's final retirement outcome can be explained by the returns of just the first 10 years of retirement, not the last 10 years, not the middle years, the first 10. When you are withdrawing from the portfolio, not adding to it, withdrawing, this is called sequence of returns risk. And I want to explain it in a way that makes the mechanism clear, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Two people retire on the same day, same age, same portfolio, $1 million each, same asset allocation, same average annual returns over 30 years, call it 7% per year. Identical. On paper, both of the retirement calculators show the same thing. One of them runs out of money before they die, the other one leaves an inheritance. The only difference between them is the order in which the good years and the bad years arrived. Let me give you the actual math. Person A retires in January of 2000. The dot-com bubble pops over the following 2 years. She starts pulling $40,000 per year to live. Year one, her market position drops 25%. Her $1 million portfolio becomes $750,000. She pulls out $40,000. She is at $710,000. Year two, another 20% decline. She is at $568,000. She pulls out $40,000. She is at $528,000. She started with $1 million. In 24 months, she is at roughly half that figure. Not because she made bad investment decisions, because the market happened to be bad during the years when she had no paycheck to fill the gap. Person B retires in 2010. The market is recovering. His early years are strongly positive. He pulls $40,000 per year from a growing base that never gets hit in its most critical window. He reaches 80 with money remaining. Identical 7% average annual return over the full 30-year period. Two fundamentally different outcomes. Because when you are making withdrawals from a portfolio, the math is not about averages. It is about sequence. The brutal version of this mechanism, when markets fall in the early years of your retirement, you are forced to sell more shares to fund the same withdrawal at exactly the wrong time. Those shares are gone forever. They cannot participate in the recovery because you sold them to pay for groceries during the decline. The portfolio that remains is permanently smaller, and even a massive subsequent rally cannot bring you back to where you would have been because the rally is compounding on a damaged base. Schwab Center for Financial Research modeled this directly. Two investors, both starting with $1 million, both taking $50,000 in initial annual withdrawals, both experiencing 15% portfolio declines in years 1 and 2. Starting in year 3, both portfolios grow 6% per year. The investor who could not reduce spending runs out of money significantly earlier than the investor who cut withdrawals in the bad early years. But most retired people cannot meaningfully cut spending in a market downturn. The healthcare premiums, the mortgage or rent, the utilities, those costs do not flex. Research by the AdvisorFinder.com calculator project summarizes this precisely. The first 5 years of retirement matter more than the next 25 combined when it comes to portfolio survival. This is the second sign, and it connects to sign 1 in a way that matters. The forced early retirement makes it more likely you retire into a bad market window because you did not get to choose when to leave. The person who plans to leave in a bull market can wait 6 months, watch the market, and time the entry somewhat. The person who is laid off at 57 in a volatile year does not have that option. By the way, hit subscribe if you like this content. Otherwise, the algorithm genuinely may never surface my videos to you again. I'll be back in a second. The 4% rule, the rule that says you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio annually in retirement and not run out of money over 30 years, was built on historical US market data going back to the 1920s. Morningstar's 2026 State of Retirement Income Research puts the current safe starting withdrawal rate closer to 3.9% for a balanced portfolio. For a $1 million portfolio, that is a $10,000 per year difference in sustainable income from the standard advice. For someone who planned around 4.4 or 4.5%, which many online calculators default to the gap is even larger, the retirement calculator on your brokerage's website assumes average returns, distributed evenly year after year. It does not model the scenario where your first 3 years look like 2000 to 2002. It gives you the median outcome. The median outcome is fine. The bad sequence outcome is a retirement that works for 12 years and then stops working at 73. The inventor of the 4% rule went back and reviewed the data in 2024 and acknowledged the rule might need updating for current market conditions, which is the financial equivalent of someone selling you a waterproof jacket, then telling you 4 years later that it might not work in heavy rain. Useful information, delivered too late. Here is the part that rarely makes it into a retirement calculator. Knowing these numbers and building a system around them are two very different things. Analysis without architecture doesn't actually protect you. When I went looking for a resource that translated 50 years of retirement research into a usable framework, not opinion, not anecdote, actual actuarial and market data across decades, I couldn't find it consolidated in one place. So I built it myself. The result is the Exit Code, a digital book built on 50 years of retirement data, distilled into a mathematical framework for figuring out when you can actually stop working. Not someday, not when it feels right, a specific date with specific numbers behind it. Two things in it connect directly to what we have been discussing. The first is the 4% trap chapter, which breaks down exactly why the standard withdrawal rule fails under sequence of returns conditions, and what the dynamic withdrawal method looks like in practice. A fixed withdrawal rate is a passive strategy built on an assumption of average returns in average order. A dynamic strategy adjusts to actual market conditions, which is the only thing that matches the real world. The second is the 58% rule, which is built around the statistical reality that more than half of retirements are forced early. The chapter maps out the specific buffer you need and in what form to survive an unplanned gap between your last paycheck and your full retirement income without destroying your portfolio sequencing profile in the process. It is 8 chapters of pure research, no filler, no affiliate product recommendations buried inside. You can get it through the link in the description for less than what you would spend on one dinner out, and considerably less than what a mediocre financial advisor charges per hour to walk you through half of this. The urgency isn't manufactured. Every year you delay stress testing your plan against these 4 signs is a year the clock is running. Back to the 4 signs. You might think the Social Security timing problem is the most well-known issue in retirement planning, and you would be right. Everyone knows it exists. Roughly 90% of people make a suboptimal decision anyway. Here is why. As of December 2025, the average monthly Social Security payment for a 62-year-old new claimant was $1,335, For a new beneficiary age 67, it was approximately $2,521 every single month for the rest of their life. The difference in 2026 between the maximum benefit for someone who retires early at 62 versus waiting until 70 is $2,200, $12 per month, $5,100, $81 at age 70 versus $2,969 at age 62. That is not a minor optimization. That is $26,544 per year in additional income, guaranteed, inflation indexed from the federal government for the rest of your life. Run that over a 20-year retirement. Claiming at 70 instead of 62 increases your monthly benefit by approximately 76%. Across 20 years, the cumulative lifetime income difference runs well into six figures. Not from investing better, not from working harder, from selecting a different date on a government form. While experts say it is generally best to wait until age 70 to claim Social Security retirement benefits, research published in 2022 by the National Bureau of Economic Research finds only around 10% of people actually do. The proportion claiming at 62 has declined from over 60% in the 90s to about 26% in 2024, the lowest rate in at least 40 years. Still, 1 in 4 people accepting a permanent 30% reduction. Here is the psychology behind it, and this is where the reversal happens. You think the problem is Social Security solvency. The actual problem is the decision you make today about it. A 2025 AARP poll found that more people are claiming early, mostly due to concerns about Social Security's financial future, amid reports that its trust funds are running out of money. The logic is, take something now rather than wait for more and risk getting nothing. It is fear-based math. But if Congress takes no action, benefits could be reduced to approximately 83% of scheduled amounts at the point of trust fund depletion. Not zero. 83%, a 17% haircut at worst, versus the permanent 30% cut you lock in by claiming at 62 right now, today, with certainty. You are hedging against the smaller future risk by voluntarily taking the larger current one. But here's the part that connects Social Security timing back to Sign 2 in a way most people never see. The higher your guaranteed monthly Social Security income, the less you need to withdraw from your investment portfolio each month. The less you pull from the portfolio, the less you are forced to sell equities at the bottom when a bad market year hits in your first 5 years of retirement. Delay Social Security, and you directly reduce your sequence of returns exposure, not through any investment cleverness, but through the mechanical interaction between guaranteed income and portfolio withdrawal rates. A 2019 study conducted by United Income found that 92% of people would be better off waiting at least until age 65 to claim Social Security. Any age lower than that threshold was suboptimal, with 62 being the worst age. Roughly 57% of retirees would have more money if they waited until age 70, according to the same study. Let me introduce someone who shows up in the data consistently without having a name. I'll call him David. David is 63. He retired at 61 when his employer announced a round of layoffs and offered him an early separation package. He had $420,000 in his 401k. At the time, more than most people his age, if we're being honest. He claimed Social Security at 62 because he needed income while he figured out the next chapter. He received $1,400 per month. He had no specific plan for healthcare costs before Medicare. He went onto the ACA marketplace. David is exhibiting 3 of the 4 signs in this video. He did not know it. He thought he was making rational, reasonable decisions under pressure. He was. They were the default decisions. And the default path has a structural problem. Sign 4 is what is going to compound everything else David is dealing with. If you retire at 62, which again is the median actual retirement age in America right now, you do not have Medicare. Medicare begins at 65. You have a 3-year window where you are entirely on your own for health insurance costs. And that window just became dramatically more expensive. The Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that expired at the end of 2025 mean that 24 million Americans will see a sharp spike in their healthcare costs unless Congress acts to extend the premium tax. credits. The most at-risk segment is middle-income Americans aged 50 to 64, precisely the group most likely to experience a forced early retirement, who are still years away from Medicare and now face a doubling or tripling of medical care costs. In states and rating areas where base premiums are high, a 62-year-old above the income threshold can face $1,200 to $1,800 or more per month for a benchmark silver plan. Let that number sit. $1,200 to $1,800 every month before you have spent $1 on food, housing, transportation, or anything else. One couple, a husband and wife on a Union Health plan, saw their combined insurance premium drop from $2,700 to $700 when they switched over to Medicare. $2,000 per month savings, automatic, just by reaching 65, which means the 3 years before 65 were costing them $2,000 per month more than they needed to pay. That is $72,000 evaporated from a retirement portfolio for one reason only: age. Now zoom out to the full life cycle cost of healthcare in retirement. For an average, healthy, 65-year-old couple, total annual healthcare costs for traditional Medicare options will rise from $17,003 in the first year of retirement to $55,513 per year at age 85. Lifetime, national average premiums for traditional Medicare options are projected at $688,996 for a healthy 65-year-old couple retiring in 2026. When deductibles, copays, hearing, vision, and dental are added, total costs increase to $955,411, nearly $1 million in healthcare. For a couple who is healthy at 65, health-related cost inflation is projected at 5.8% per year long term, while Social Security cost of living adjustments are projected to rise by only 2.4%. Healthcare is growing at more than twice the rate of your primary inflation protection every year. For the rest of your retirement, your gas tank has a slow leak that is accelerating. According to the 2025 Milliman Retiree Health Cost Index, retiring at 60 instead of 65 can increase lifetime healthcare expenses by roughly 56% under a Medigap pathway and about 90% under a Medicare Advantage pathway. So every year before 65 is not just a year of missing Medicare. It is a year of exponentially higher uncovered costs, landing on a portfolio that is already smaller than planned due to the forced early exit, that is already being depleted by bad sequence risk, that is already generating less guaranteed income due to early Social Security claiming. This is where the four signs stop being separate problems and become one interconnected system failure. There is a particular genre of retirement content on social media that goes, retire at 55, ignore the haters, live your best life. It is visually compelling content. Zero mention of the fact that at 55, you have 10 years before Medicare and will likely spend in excess of $1,000 per month on health insurance before you can access a single Medicare benefit. The beaches look great. The explanation of benefits forms are less photogenic. Let me put all four signs together in one scenario. Mark is 52 years old. He earns $95,000 per year. He has $380,000 in his 401k. He plans to retire at 65, investing aggressively until 60 and then shifting to a conservative allocation. He plans to claim Social Security at 67. His calculator says he'll have enough. Sign 1 hits at 58. His company merges. His role is eliminated. He spends 13 months finding a comparable position, ends up taking a job at 60 that pays $70,000 with no 401k match. He loses 2 years of maximum contributions, roughly $50,000 in foregone contributions, plus their projected compounding at his highest earning potential. His portfolio at 60 is $387,000 instead of the $520,000 the original plan projected. Sign 4 follows immediately. His new employer's health plan is substandard. He is 60 years old. His ACA premium, with no enhanced subsidy now that they have expired, is $1,100 per month. He is pulling this from savings while trying not to deplete his 401k. Then sign 2. His portfolio, now in a conservative allocation because he is 5 years from his planned retirement, hits a significant market decline. He begins informal withdrawals at 62 to bridge the healthcare gap. Year 1, markets fall 18%. His $387,000 becomes $317,340. He pulls $45,000 to cover living expenses and insurance premiums. He is at $272,340 at age 62. Sign 3. He needs income. He claims Social Security at 62. He receives $1,400 per month instead of the $2,521 he would have received at 67. That is a $13,452 per year permanent reduction forever. At 65, Medicare begins. His portfolio is roughly $230,000. His Social Security income covers basic expenses. But any major healthcare event, any sustained market decline, any large home repair, any significant family obligation, and the cushion is gone. Mark did nothing most people would not do under identical circumstances. He followed default behaviors. He made reasonable, in-the-moment decisions. The problem was not his discipline. It was that he had no framework for how these 4 signs interact with each other. Here is what ties all 4 of these signs together. None of them are savings problems at their core. They are planning architecture problems. Sign 1, the forced early exit, is not solved by saving more money in the abstract. It is solved by building a dedicated bridge fund separate from your retirement portfolio, specifically sized for a forced 3 to 7 year gap, not an emergency fund, a strategic bridge. Sign 2 sequence of returns risk is not solved by better stock picking. It is solved by knowing your exact withdrawal strategy before your first year begins and holding enough in short-term bonds or cash equivalents to avoid selling equities in a down market during your first 5 years of retirement. The cash buffer is the structural solution to the sequencing problem. Sign 3 Social Security timing is not solved by waiting and hoping nothing changes with the program. It is solved by the bridge from sign 1. Having enough supplemental income from your bridge fund to delay claiming for several years, which raises your guaranteed income floor permanently, which reduces how much you need to withdraw from your portfolio monthly, which directly reduces your exposure to sign 2. Sign 4 healthcare costs is not solved by assuming your general investment account will absorb the hit. It is solved by projecting healthcare costs at 5.8% annual inflation, not 2.5%, and building a dedicated healthcare reserve before you retire that is separate from both your retirement, income, and your bridge fund. These are not 4 separate problems that require 4 separate solutions. They are 4 nodes in the same failure mode. Solve one intelligently, and you reduce the exposure to the others. Ignore one, and it creates cascading pressure across all the rest. David from earlier is now 68. After mapping his actual income sources, running a real healthcare projection, and modeling his Social Security optimization, he found contract work between 63 and 66 to bridge the gap. He will now receive a Social Security benefit at 70 of $2,200 per month compared to the $1,400 he was receiving at 62. He can stop the early claim and switch to the delayed benefit at 70 under current Social Security rules, crediting the larger delayed amount going forward. His financial advisor never mentioned this option. It does not generate a management fee. His retirement is not what he originally imagined, but it is no longer fragile. 3 specific takeaways calibrated to these exact 4 signs, not retirement advice generica. 1. Assume you will leave the workforce between 3 and 5 years earlier than planned. Build a dedicated bridge fund, not your emergency fund, a separate vehicle specifically calculated to cover that window. Use the 58% statistic as your planning input, not a scare tactic. It is the statistical baseline for how retirements actually end, per the 2026 EBRI data. 2, run a sequence of return stress tests on your specific portfolio, using a scenario where the first 2 years of retirement produce minus 20% returns and you continue withdrawals at your planned rate. If your plan fails that test, you need either a larger cash buffer, a lower withdrawal rate, a delayed retirement date to build a larger base, or some combination of all three. The test is free. The consequence of skipping it is a decade of compounding damage you can never reverse. 3. Before you decide when to claim Social Security, calculate your monthly benefit at 62, 67, and 70, and then model the cumulative lifetime income difference assuming you live to age 85. For the majority of people with average health at retirement, the gap is not a modest adjustment. Claiming at 62 versus 70 results in a 76% permanent difference in monthly benefit. For someone with a $2,000 full retirement age benefit, that is the difference between $1,400 per month and $2,480 per month for life. That is the most underutilized piece of guaranteed inflation-adjusted income in the American financial system. Nearly 2 in 3 Americans, 64%, are more worried about going broke in retirement than dying. That is not random anxiety. That is the correct intuition about a system with structural vulnerabilities felt by people who cannot name the specific fault lines. You can name them now. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And the 64% who are afraid. They are not wrong to be afraid. They're just afraid of the wrong version of the problem.